So when I first got interested in understanding social networks and social network analysis, I was reminded of the very first class I ever taught at Temple University. So I started my career in academia and went to Temple on a future faculty fellowship and thought I'd be teaching mathematics for the rest of my life. And so I get there first day as a graduate student, and I've been assigned to be a teaching assistant with a professor. Well, the professor had a family emergency and had to go home basically for the semester, and so the department didn't have anyone to fill in, and they said, Myra, we need you to teach the class. Well, I was so excited because this was going to be my opportunity to get all these kids excited about mathematics and everything. So I go to class the first day. It was called Discrete Mathematics, which was the class that everyone who was not a math or science major had to take, okay, to fulfill their math requirements. So you can imagine that the students in this class were not always that excited about the subject matter. Meanwhile, I come to class, so excited that I'm going to be teaching these kids about discrete math, and they're going to love it, and it's going to be great. And I get into class. There's probably 70 students in this class. It was kind of a lecture hall size room, and of course they're all sitting towards the back. And I start my lecture. I've prepared all my materials. No one is listening. No one's paying attention to me. They're talking, they're listening to music, they're giggling. I didn't know what to do. So I start, I've just moved from Alabama, and I start in my most, polite Southern accent, asking everybody to could y'all please keep it down? I'm trying to lecture here now. You're not going to understand if you can't hear this. And of course, I'm not getting anywhere. So then I elevate my tone a little bit, and I start, saying, now, y'all know it's not polite to speak when other people are talking. I'm teaching here. You need to be listening. Well, it didn't matter what I did. They were not paying attention to me. So I go home that day, and I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to do? How do I win this class over? Well, about 50 of my students were football players, and so I decided I'm going to go out and learn about football. I went out, I bought Football for Dummies, which, by the way, is a great book if you ever want to learn quickly about the basics of the sport. And I learned about offenses and defenses and all these kinds of things. And so I incorporated those concepts into some of the problems that we were going to be reviewing and the topics and issues that we were going to be learning. I thought this was such a great idea. I start going through some of those examples in the next class. Nobody's paying attention, talking, giggling, listening to music, not paying attention to me, not excited about mathematics. 3 weeks go by, I am miserable. And I go home, the class met on Wednesday and Friday afternoon at 1:40, which is about the worst time you can possibly be scheduled to teach. Because especially on Fridays, everybody wants to go home or start having fun for the weekend. So I go home third week on a Friday. I call my father and I say, Daddy, I don't think I can do this. My father is a minister, so he has a lot of experience in terms of engaging audiences. And he said to me, Myra, let me tell you what you need to do. When you go into class next week, you need to find the leader. And I said, what do you mean, Dad? And he said, you've got to find that guy or that girl that everybody's sort of looking to as the popular cool kid. There's somebody in that audience that's driving that behavior, and you got to identify who that person is and engage with them. Well, I thought this was a bunch of hooey, but I decided I tried everything I knew to try, so all right, I'd give it a shot. So the next week I go into class, and I had to kind of adjust the way I was teaching, because I needed to sort of pay attention to the class to look at their interaction. So instead of starting to lecture like I normally would, I took some time to kind of observe their interactions, then started my lecture, and then I realized there was the guy. I could see him sitting on the second from the last row, 350 pounds, offensive lineman. His name was Terrence, but everybody called him T-Bone. And he was the guy that everyone would look to. It was amazing. I couldn't believe I hadn't noticed it before, but if I would ask a question to the class, everyone around him would kind of look to him to see, are we going to laugh? Are we going to ignore this? Are we going to say something smart? What are we doing? If he was joking around, they were joking around. If he was serious, they were serious. So I finished the class that day, and as he was coming down, I said, T-Bone, you have a minute? He said, yes, Miss Myra, what do you need? I said, well, I need your help, okay? You know, I've tried to bring in some of these problems from football, and obviously I'm not doing a great job, but we're about to learn some techniques to deal with optimization problems, and I really want to use different offensive strategies as an example, but you know, I don't know anything about this, and you're the expert, you're on the offensive line, and you think maybe you could teach me a little bit about how you guys choose offenses, how you run them, what the strategy is? And his eyes lit up and he said, yes, Miss Myra, I could do that. I could help you with that. And from that day forward, I never had a problem with a class. In the 6 years that I taught at Temple, math, statistics, I never had an issue because I learned the value of personal influence, personal relationships, and I learned how to identify the leaders in my audience. And that's really what we're about here at Community Analytics, is helping you find the T-bones in your world and interacting with them, winning them over, learning what makes them tick, so you can become an active part of their networks.